You're watching ChillyBoy Productions. I'm Larry ChillyBoy Chilson, and this is our Pride Month movie review for Love Lies Bleeding. And to
Mhm.
help me review this new 2024 film, I have Stephanie from Movie Chatter. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey Larry, thank you. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining me to discuss this new film. Usually for these, we're doing a lot of retro movies, but yeah, we have a 2024 release to discuss. I actually missed this one in movie theaters. It's one of those indies that, something just kept coming up the first couple weeks it was out.
Right.
Well, gotta wait for streaming now.
There she goes.
Out the door, in as fast as she came. So
Well, you know how those lesbians are. They get that U-Haul and they go.
they
They
go.
don't hang
And
around. They do
ugh,
not hang around.
we have some U-Haul lesbianism going on in this film right here.
Like I've never seen.
I was really excited for this one. I have last couple years been doing at least two, three movies at Sundance Online because they've been doing them at Sundance Online. And I saw that one of two Kristen Stewart movies was available on that online platform.
Hmm?
Unfortunately, it was Love Me. It's her straight movie at
I
Sundance.
haven't seen that one yet.
Thankfully, it was one that got a release pretty quickly after Sundance. It seemed like Kristen Stewart specifically was really excited about this one. She seemed to
She was
really
into
dig it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
think her queerometer is up to like a 10 plus.
Love Lies Bleeding is a 2024 crime thriller from director Rose Glass, who I have really been enjoying her run of films. So once I saw her attached to this as well, it made me even more excited to see the film. But as we said, it stars Kristen Stewart as well as Katy M O'Brian, Jena Malone, Dave Franco, and Ed Harris. So it
And his
stars
wig.
and that prosthetic bald wig that he had going
Ed
on.
Harris and his wig.
So the film basically follows Lou, who is this reclusive gym clerk, if you will, who falls hard for Jackie, an ambitious bodybuilder who's heading to Las Vegas to compete in a bodybuilding dream show. Their love soon leads to violence as they get pulled deep into the web of Lou's criminal family. So, Stephanie, you own the Blu-ray there from
Yup.
A24. What
A24 Blu-ray.
and if you don't know, Stephanie is kind of our go-to here on YouTube for all things physical media. She is on it. She's giving you amazing, comprehensive reviews of the physical media releases. So if you're ever wondering about particularly some of these more niche releases, some smaller studio releases, please head over to Movie Chatter. You will find some great insight for the physical release. So I'm really excited to hear one, your thoughts on that A24 release, and then
Oh,
your thoughts on the film.
well, I think the release is gorgeous. I'm happy that they went with a lot of times. I'm sure you've seen they go with the real tall ones.
Like my Midsummer, wherever it
Yeah,
is, that
yep,
just
yep.
doesn't
It's
fit
made. It's
anywhere.
yeah. It's like okay, what are we doing with this? So it kind of forces you to buy a few more, so it's not alone on the shelf. But then
Yeah.
they'll scoop back to like something like this size, which is more manageable for a shelf. But I love the artwork they went with. It's so classic. And then on the back, we have Lou and Jackie. Well, we have Ed. Of course, we have Lou Sr., our girls. And I love that they went with a pink disc.
Oh.
I mean, come on. Attention to detail.
Oh,
And then
so
it comes with some art cards, which I haven't taken out yet because I always leave them in there. But I think it's a beautiful release. Nothing cheesy about it. I'm happy with it. Limited special features. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. Of course, we get the commentary from Rose Glass and one of her co-writers, and then we get a little featurette in the land of guns and muscle.
Mm.
Sex, steroids, and codependency kind of sums up our couple here. Most lesbians, anyway. That could be a new T-shirt, I think. Right?
Right? That's a great tag.
Sex, steroids, codependency. I think it sums it all up. Let's say for the younger generation, because I'm Gen X, but in the younger days, it could get wild. And then there's some behind the scenes photography, but I would have liked to have seen a little more in the way of special features, just because there's so much to just talk about with this. As you know, I just love this movie. I was a product of being around this age in the 80s, which it's an 80s movie. I never lived homeless under a bridge. I'll say that. I was never under a bridge. And
Never
I
had.
say that,
You know what though? I commended her. She pulled out that toothbrush, and I said, you know what?
yeah,
At least she's got a little pack. At least
yeah.
we're taking care of ourselves to an extent out here,
And when she did the pull-ups on the side of the bridge, I'm like, girl, if this woman can keep her physique, no one has an excuse to be out of shape.
right?
She's living under a bridge, literally living under a bridge, and that girl is in shape. She is kicking. But yeah, I loved it. I have been singing the praises of Rose Glass since Saint Maud. And I feel like sometimes it just falls on deaf ears. And I'm hoping that with this movie, we're going to draw in a whole new crowd to just love her and love her work and
Yeah.
appreciate what goes into it, because there's so much depth to anything she does. Like I said, I was a product of the 80s. And as soon as they just panned into the gym, I remember there was a little neighborhood gym just like that by my house when I lived in a little rental house after college with some friends. That's exactly what the gym looked like. Like they nailed it. They nailed that 80s grimy neighborhood gym. You walk in, anybody can walk in and work out. And the entire movie, I kept saying to Kelly, I feel like after I watch this movie, I'm going to need a shower and a half. Right? It's got that grimy, gritty, and I know it was intentional
Yeah.
because of the themes of the movie,
Yeah.
but they nailed it.
I mean, even one look at Ed, and you kind of are like, "Ooh, I need a shower."
Yeah, I need a shower. Yeah, and Ed's trailer and the shooting range. I mean, there's so much. And I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to see this amazing film. But those were like my impressions. I was like, "Ick." There's not one character in this movie that is consistently a good person.
Yeah.
They're not bad. Maybe their intentions are good, but they do bad things.
Yeah,
And
everybody does. So I'm a little bit questionable at one point
they
or another.
sometimes different levels of questionable. But yeah, you're right. Everybody makes some really bad choices, but yet in a way we're rooting for them.
Yeah.
It's a very strange dichotomy with all these characters, because you love them, but you're like, ooh, that was bad.
I
That
think
was
Rose
not
Glass,
good.
she does that really well, creating and helping mold these really complex lead characters
Oh yeah.
that aren't fully like heroes that you can get behind, but they're not ever full on villains. They're
Yeah.
just really messy and complicated. And
Yeah.
these two, our two leads in this film, really get messy and complicated, but never to the point where you like, I don't know, are rooting against them or want them to like get busted or get their comeuppance.
Yeah, she really knows how to write a character so that you, as the viewer, like you said, you're almost conflicted because you want them to be okay, because you know that something in them, there is good in there,
Mhm.
but bad keeps coming up. Bad decision, bad decision. And I mean, like we talked about, like we joked about the U-Haul lesbians. This is like turbo U-Haul lesbian. There wasn't even a U-Haul involved. It was a backpack. We
I
never
was
even got the U-Haul.
I understand half of this relationship because it's a little
Yeah.
bit out of necessity. She's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I kind of I'm sleeping under a bridge tonight, or
Yeah,
I
I
could
think I'm
just
gonna
sleep
hang here.
here. But they took it to a new level, and then they're talking about moving states together, and I'm like,
Yeah,
wait a minute, has it been like
yeah,
2 days? How many days
yeah,
have you known each other? And you're talking about move up and moving to a different state together.
yeah, and all kinds of goings on are happening. I mean, just you name it, it is happening in there.
Yeah,
And I'm like, bodies are flying and things are going and crimes are being all kinds of things are going on. I mean, you have everything in this movie.
yeah.
If you think about it, like you have the love story, you have the dysfunctional family, you have the semi-dysfunctional codependent relationship that we talk about. And then, like you said, they want to move states, they want to get out of their situation, but yet they keep getting more entrenched in it. The more bad decisions they make, the more entrenched they are in this lifestyle that they really need to get out of.
Yeah, there's definitely points here where I was literally shaking, like wanting to shake the Jackie character. Like you can feel the
Yeah.
frustration with Kristen Stewart's Lou a little bit because you're like,
Yeah.
"Girl, what are you doing? I understand, but ma'am,
Ma'am, stop it.
what is going on with you?" And so she's a really interesting character on the arc that they take her through because she is a little bit more of that like naive character who makes
Yes.
those more naive choices and is more
Yep.
susceptible to getting like sucked into doing things that she should not be doing. And again, part of it you understand because of this circumstance she's in. We don't really know what happened with her old family. We just get like this glimpse.
Right.
There's this phone call that happens
Yes.
when she gets kind of in this desperate mode. So you know that didn't end on a good note. She's obviously on the run from Oklahoma for one circumstance or another. And
Yep.
so you understand the desperation of her character at this point in her life and just kind of trying to make it. And I think a lot of people can really relate to, one, queer people at this younger age in the
It
80s
happens. Yeah.
specifically
Oh,
being homeless and on the run, just trying to survive and make it any way you can.
yeah.
So you understand her from that point, but then you're also like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, why these people? Why did you pick this family? And like I said, we're not doing spoilers here. I mean, this is just like a time frame thing. She even meets the brother-in-law and the father before she even gets to Kristen Stewart's Lou. Like she's already a mess before she even gets to the gym. She's already met the wrong people.
Oh, and then yeah, we have Dave Franco who just plays this
Oh,
nasty
oh,
skis.
he's awful. Oh, he's awful.
Pretty much every man. People who woke this, woke that. One, you're probably not gonna watch this movie anyway.
No, you're not going to watch us.
If you're quote unquote anti woke, Love Lies Bleeding is not one that you'd be interested in,
No.
regardless. But pretty much every man in this movie, you're just like, hmm, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
what are you doing? What are you doing? And
and
they're everywhere.
And physically, they take on like the kind of internal grossness that's kind of the fun of Ed Harris's makeup job is like
Oh, yeah.
outwardly he is as gross as he is inwardly. And same thing
Yeah,
with Dave Franco,
absolutely.
who
Yeah.
obviously can be very attractive, conventionally good looking guy, Dave
Oh,
Franco.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
just make him look nasty, completely unappealing. You have Miss Malone over here as her sister, who for the most part of the movie is a sympathetic character, but even she gets to a point where she makes a horrible decision, like a decision that you're like, well, excuse me,
Girl, what are you doing?
are you really gonna say that to us right now?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah,
Oh,
even her, she's like the most probably outwardly sympathetic character that still makes
yes.
decisions that you're like, oh my gosh, ma'am, no.
Yeah, everybody in this movie at one point or another makes a life-altering, horrible decision. I've never seen so many people make so many bad decisions so fast.
But as you were saying, it gives us everything, even amongst the like dirty griminess of it.
Yep.
It's also still somehow sexy. Like as you're
And
watching it,
appealing.
you're
Yeah.
like, oh, the camera loves Miss Katy M O'Brian. Like, I mean, they
Oh,
just the way
yeah.
they shoot her, they love her. They love that strong physique. You're kind of seeing her through the lens of Lou, which I loved
Yes.
as she's seeing her from across the way. They have, the more intimate scenes I thought were shot really well and really steamy for what they were
Yep.
going for as
Yep.
well. So you are like kind of enamored. At one point I was like, wow, I mean, Lou is down bad for this girl. Like obviously we're
Oh,
we're going
yeah.
down this rabbit hole. She is down bad for
Oh,
this
yeah.
woman. But
Oh,
you can
yeah.
kind of see why. You're like, I mean, I get it, like look at her. She is
Yeah.
a beautiful specimen to behold here. And it's always interesting when you have like these really kind of grimy feeling movies that still
Mhm.
manage to be sexy and kind of
Yeah.
draw you into that. You're like, I feel gross, but I'm still ready, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I'm gross and I'm locked in. We'll shower later.
We'll deal with that
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah, I
But
thought the
yeah.
cinematography was genius. And the shots of Jackie and Lou together, I thought they were like you said, they were steamy and they drew you in, but yet they were still tasteful. And I thought they felt really authentic. And I think a lot of that comes from Kristen Stewart just being comfortable in her own skin, comfortable in who she is, comfortable with her real life persona. And I think she just kind of maybe carried that over, and it just comes across as very authentic. She's acting, but she's not acting because
Yeah.
this is who she is to a point. I think that it's good for her to do roles like that because she could just be herself.
Oh
And there's
yeah.
no like getting comfortable, this and that. Are we faking it good enough? Like she's not faking who she is, but I think it was a perfect fit for that role. It was fun to see her be bad.
Yeah, she was great in this movie, wasn't she?
Oh, she was
So
fantastic,
good.
and she was so bad. She was so good, but she was so bad. Like, she was such a bad influence on Jackie, but she loved her.
It turns it on its head. It feels like almost a doomed queer love story for a certain
Yep,
stretch. Like, obviously, these two are just toxic meets toxic. It just, they are kind of fueling each other's worst impulses
yeah,
and going with it. But it turns that on its head, and actually, the end result turns out to not be so much this sorrowful, down, depressing queer love story that we've seen
yep,
over and over.
yep,
Actually, the third act takes a somewhat wild turn, which, if you've watched a Rose
yeah,
Glass film, she's known for these third acts. She's gonna pivot real hard into a more supernatural, different ending than the grounded kind of stuff maybe you were expecting leading up to that. Obviously, again, we're not going to talk about what exactly
right,
happens in the third act, but it's
right.
been very divisive. I know some people who really hated where the film goes in the third act. Other people have really enjoyed where it goes. How'd you feel about that third act turn?
I always like a good turn. I loved what she did in the third act with Saint Maud, so I had high expectations. I knew there was something coming that was, like you said, it was divisive. So I knew something was coming, and when that something came, I was kind of like, "Oh, all right." But I had to sit. It was one that I had to really process after because I was so in the moment. I just kind of went with it. And after the movie, I kind of the big thing that happened, I kind of thought we're seeing it from a certain person's
Mhm.
perspective. And that's what they're seeing,
Yeah.
if that makes sense without
Mhm.
spoiling things. So from
Yeah.
that perspective, I thought it was a really cool kind of almost like a visual aid for for the person watching the movie.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is people who didn't like it maybe were very literal with what was happening because
Right.
I took
Right.
it very, as you said, much more on a perspective, much more metaphorical of
Yes.
what was happening with the characters rather
Yes.
than this literally just happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of people, like you said, were taking it way too
Yeah.
literally when it was
Yeah.
more of what the other person was feeling.
Yeah, and in that sense, I actually really liked it.
Right.
And
Right.
I ended up really enjoying the ending, and then we get this final moment that was wild. I was not expecting
I was
the
not expecting that
final
either.
scene of this
Ugh,
movie.
I was like, what?
I was like, oh, wow, okay.
All right. We were glued. We took our showers after. We were there. It almost had to happen when you think about it because it couldn't have been that smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Like it almost had to happen. And I'm like, okay, if something has to happen, this is a cool ending. Like I like it.
I was down with the ending. I think, like you said, pretty much with Rose, I generally like where she takes us in the third act. I know Saint Maud was also quite divisive, and
Oh yeah.
I loved the third act of Saint. Like the third
And
act
the
is what
ending.
really cemented that film for me. Was the
Oh
ending of
yeah.
that movie was like, yep, I love it.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
amazing. The way people were talking, I have to admit, I thought it was going to be. I don't know. I thought it was actually maybe even going to be wilder than it turned out to be. Maybe because I did kind of take it as this more metaphorical washing over.
Right.
Because I saw the trailers. Obviously, in the trailers, you see those shots of her muscles. Like she continues to bulk up because she's working towards this
Right.
show. So in my head, I was like, are we gonna get a Hulk situation? Like, is
Please
it
don't
just
make
gonna
her
be a
mad.
full-on Hulk? Like she gonna
Uh,
turn green in the final act and just rampage? And so I think that the ending, maybe because I had worked it up in my head, was a little bit tamer than I expected.
yeah. But it fit. It worked.
So did you have
Yeah.
any complaints or things that didn't work so well with you for Love Lies Bleeding?
I mean, we do have some really, and I'm not, again, no spoilers. We really do get into some hardcore violence. I mean, hardcore. There's like the scene where I'm sure if I was in a theater, I would have heard audible gasping.
Yeah.
That was rough. It needed to happen, but it was rough. I would have liked maybe to have had a little bit more backstory on Lou's father. What was the dynamics of that situation? Like, what made it come to a head? Because it was really bad. Like, there was like no contact type of
Yeah.
thing. Obviously, something, some really bad things happen with really bad people. And
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen a little more sprinkling of that in there because it obviously affected how Lou makes decisions. And when she makes those not so great decisions, you know it's because that's what she's been taught. It's not a complaint. It's just something I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of. But I mean, to me, this movie's an A plus.
Yeah,
I
along
mean,
the lines of what you said, I think my biggest, I guess, negative nitpick is I wish we had just a bit more about most of the characters, like just a
yeah,
tad bit more, like you said, with Lou and her father specifically, because it's such a through line for the movie. It's like so important
yeah,
to everything that happens. And
yeah,
we get kind of explanations, but we never, I don't know, I don't think we ever get the full picture that would really flesh everything out and really kind of cement the particularly the final moments and once we really hit that. And the same thing like we were talking about even with Jackie a little bit. I don't think we
right,
needed her full backstory, but I think if we had just learned a sprinkle more, like we get one tad here, one tad there, and that's basically it for her as a character leading
right.
into what happens. And I think it would make maybe make her character trajectory either more tragic or even maybe more predictable. I don't know. But it would have painted her out as a person heading into this situation maybe a
Mhm.
little bit more so we could once again maybe understand her decisions, understand why
Yeah,
she was doing what she was doing, why she was, easily able to pitfall into some of these situations.
yeah, exactly.
So I think it's just maybe a little bit more on the character part. And this movie is what, 140, 145? Well, for this kind of movie, I think that's a good sweet spot. I wouldn't want it too much longer, but I think you
Yeah.
could have added a 5-10 minute extra character work that would have built it out without like having us be like, oh, okay, well, now we're starting to drag along.
Yeah, I mean,
Because this movie's
it's
long.
104 minutes. You could have easily gone to 120 minutes and gotten more out of your characters,
Yeah.
and it would have still felt comfortable because it didn't feel long. It didn't feel short, but it didn't feel long. But like you said, I would have liked a little more fleshing out of the characters because it helps us understand how people who so desperately you can see want a certain life for themselves that doesn't involve these bad things, yet they keep making horrible decisions because they're familiar.
Mm.
But we don't know why they're familiar.
Yeah.
We know there are influences, and we all know that, we've all had those experiences where we meet this person who feels familiar, maybe not in a good way, but we're drawn towards them because it's familiar. It could be maybe they have alcoholic tendencies, maybe they have abusive tendencies, maybe they're verbally abusive, but something in our background makes them feel familiar. And it might take a little while to kind of fish it out and say, oh, you are so and so, I've met you before. But we don't get that with them. But there's obviously there's influences that are making them, number one, drawn to each other. And then together, two people making bad decisions and everyone around them making bad decisions And it would have been cool to kind of know a little more about what brought us to that point where these two people kind of just lock eyes in a gym and it's like, bam, it's on.
It even would have fleshed out even someone like the sister,
Yeah, why would she pick him as a husband?
yeah, why is she staying in this? Why doesn't she make different choices? Her and
Right.
Lou's relationship. Yeah. So I think that's really my only big complaint because, like you said, it's beautiful. I think it's shot gorgeously.
Amazing.
The soundtrack is great. The
Yep.
music throughout of all kinds is great. The sets feels authentic. It feels in the mood. The
Yep.
performances we talked about, obviously Kristen Stewart, but I think across the board, everybody is doing a fantastic job with these characters. And it's so unique in not just as a film in general. I mean,
Yeah.
for a crime thriller, it's already unique. But
Yeah.
then you add in to the queer space. I can't really recall any film like this in the queer cinema space. It's just so different and unique. It stands on its own as this
Yep.
really cool, gross, fun, wild experience.
And it's a good movie when it isn't just embraced by the queer community.
Mhm.
Across the board, you go on social media, you know how social media is. I know how social media is. We know what's out there potentially. I didn't see that with this movie. I saw so many people from so many different walks of life that have nothing to do with the queer community loving this movie as it is. And that's not an easy thing to do, especially in the social climate that we're in at times. To be able to craft a movie like this with characters that are so authentic and so rooted in their queerness and okay with it,
No.
to sell it and to sell it to a mainstream audience. I think that's an amazing accomplishment.
I think this is definitely one to break up the happiness of pride. You
The
can throw
Pride
on
Crusher.
Love Lies Bleeding to get you, a little bit different of a vibe, a little different
Yeah.
mood. It's not a
Yeah.
downer, so it's not one that's
No.
gonna make you cry and sad and like, oh Jesus, it's not one of those. It's also not like super happy fun. It's a different kind of fun. It's
Yeah.
sexy, it's different. If you like crime thrillers, I think you're gonna have a
Oh,
really good time with this movie. I think it
absolutely.
really executes all of those, including people making dumb decisions. Because oftentimes in crime thrillers, by and large, people
Yep.
have to make some very questionable choices along the way to get into the mess that they get into.
Or
And
live
this,
under a bridge.
or live under a bridge. I would say, even if you're like some kind of hopeless romantic, I know it sounds strange with all we've said here, but at the end of the day, that's kind of who these two characters are at their core. They're
Yeah.
hopelessly in love with each other.
There's love there. There is.
There is love there that fuels the madness of this movie. It's all fueled by this toxic connection that they do have. And at the end, you're kind of like, you know what? Maybe nobody else is right for you two. Maybe you two, you are perfect for each other. At the end of the day, the toxicness can find
Yeah.
nobody else, as we see this one poor girl who's like pining for Kristen Stewart's character this entire
Daisy.
movie. Another character who makes some horrible decisions along the
Yep.
way. You're like, okay, girl.
There's not one person in there that makes a good decision. Everybody's making horrible decisions.
So yeah, do you
It's
have any
perfect.
final thoughts on Love Lies Bleeding, Stephanie?
No, I think everyone should go out and see it. And like Larry said, if you like a good crime thriller that feels authentic, it's rooted in the 80s. I mean, we even have mullets. I mean, let's go. We have mullets in this movie. We're smoking cigarettes in the gym. Come on. It's the 80s. Just go and see it, either stream it. I believe, where is it? Is it streaming now?
I think
I
you
don't know if
still
it's
have
streaming.
to, yeah, it's still VOD.
Okay. And or you can get your copy, Blu-ray or 4K at the A24 shop. There's also, if you don't want to spend A24 money, if you go on Orbit DVD, there are two versions. There's a Canadian version, which would probably play in US players. I think it's only $19. And there is also a region B for people who are have region free players. They're also both available for pre-order on Orbit DVD.
Oh,
So you can get
perfect.
yourself a physical copy if that's your thing, I don't know if they come with codes or not, but there's three options for physical copies if you want to own this. And this was one that as soon as I watched it, I'm like, it is going in my collection without a doubt. I wish we could get a part two to see where they end up.
Yeah, this is definitely one they left it nice and open to if we ever want to revisit
Oh,
this
Lou and
world.
Jackie.
I'm down. I'm right there with you. I'm ready to see the next step, see what happens.
The only thing that can make it another bad decision is if they decide to have a kid, because no kid should live with those two. No,
The
no,
adoption
they
saga,
shouldn't even have a pet.
right? Where did that? There's a cat here.
I think the cat left. He just said, I'm out of
Ah,
here.
at one point she grabs the cat, and well, at one point
Yeah.
the cat makes a meal out of something they should not be licking.
No cat should eat.
Yeah, the see once again, I was like, can we
Even the
find
cat
this?
makes bad choices.
Even the cat is making horrible choices. Yeah, so it's one of those. We were talking about how if it's a pet, I'm like, leave the pet alone in movies.
Yes.
Humans, I'm usually
Yes.
like, if they die, they die. But if
Yeah,
it's
they
an
die, they die.
animal, let the animal live. And that was definitely, I was like, this cat, can we find this poor cat a stable home? This bird, there's a bird that's randomly in this
Oh, there
movie
is
that
a
I think
bird. Yes, that's right. I forgot about the
she has
bird.
two pets, and you're like, ma'am, I don't know if you should be having pets. But
Ugh.
thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on and talking about this film with me for Pride Month. I was
Yes.
so excited to hear all of your thoughts about this. Do you want to go ahead and let everybody know where they can follow you across the internet?
Sure. Well, first of all, Larry, thank you for having me on. It was so much fun talking and laughing with you about this fantastic movie that everyone needs to see. And I always love to chat with you, and I really appreciate being part of your Pride Month reviews. If anyone wants to come over and say hi, visit, I'm over at Movie Chatter on YouTube. I'm also Movie Chatter on Letterboxd and on Instagram. So follow me anywhere and come say hello. I'll be there.
Perfect. I love talking with you as well. It's always a great time. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel so that you are always up to date with all of my latest videos, including my final reviews for Pride Month 2024. Also, make sure to leave your thoughts and comments either in the comment section down below, or you can hit both of us up over across social media. What did you think of Love Lies Bleeding? Did you love it as well? Let us know all of your thoughts and comments. I love you all so much for your continued support. Mwah. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.